Hello, we are here. We made it to the part where we're doing the research and putting together a killer vendor team. But where do we start, right? Well, up to this point, you and your partner, you've sat down and you've thought about your why, your negotiables, your non-negotiables, your personal touches, and you had the conversation around budget and boundaries. At this time, hopefully, you put together your ideal guest list and identified your ideal vendors and highlighted which vendors you're willing to put more of your budget into than others. Great, let's dive in. I recommend taking a moment to divide which vendors each of you are going to be responsible for so that you are practicing delegating tasks from day one. Let's start with your venue. Locking in where you are getting married will ultimately determine your wedding date, and it will start to solidify guest count. A venue you love might have a capacity smaller than your ideal list, and you may need to start making some edits. You may also realize that making adjustments is a challenge. Maybe you both come from large families and it's just not possible to thin out your count. This will give you the information you need to start looking at venues with larger capacities, and you may need to start thinking of raising your budget or tweaking your negotiables or non-negotiables. Let's talk about the two different types of venues. There is the all-inclusive venue and the raw space venue, the venue where you have to bring everything in. The all-inclusive venue is the venue like a restaurant, a hotel, or an option which includes on-site catering, staff, tables, chairs, linens, tableware, flatware, etc. This is the venue where all you need to do is source your vendors like photographer, videography, florist, DJ, band, hair and makeup, and officiant. The raw space option, or the venue where you have to bring everything in, is a little bit more complex and a little bit more work on your end. I recommend more than a coordination package for this option. Someone who can really help you source, budget, and coordinate your vendors throughout your planning. So this is the venue where you'll have to bring in your tables, your chairs, your catering, your linens, your tableware, your flatware. With a venue like this, you want to be sure that your caterer has a full team and a catering option who can possibly help you with your rental order. You're going to want to know if the catering company you hire will have a team that is going to set up your tables and your chairs and your tableware. If not, then hiring your wedding planner in advance is super helpful because this is something that the planning team will have to take over and will ultimately need to staff appropriately. There's always a question around which option will save you more money, and there really isn't a quick answer to this. If you opt for the all-inclusive space, the pricing is set per person, and oftentimes there's a site fee in addition to the cost per person. There is typically clarity on what is included in the cost, so you know exactly what you're getting going into booking. With the raw space option, there's typically a site fee, which may include tables and chairs and security, or an on-site manager, maybe not. The cost of everything else really depends on what you're envisioning for your day. There may be more flexibility if that venue has a courtyard or an outdoor space. Maybe you opt for food trucks or an alternative food option. The raw space might work well with your budget if you're open to thinking outside of the box a little. If you want to stick to a more traditional option flow, like a ceremony, cocktail hour, or a seated dinner, then there may not be a huge cost difference between the two, especially because rentals for the raw space may take up a large chunk of the budget that you wouldn't need for the all-in-one space. Some questions to ask venues that you're considering are, what are vendor load in and load out times? And where is the entrance for that? Is there a getting ready suite? Do they have exclusive vendors they work with? Or can you bring in whoever you want? Do the vendors need to provide a certificate of insurance? Does the venue have AV capabilities? A pro tip is to check out their bathrooms. The cleanliness of the bathroom can be a good indicator of what you might expect for your whole experience. Other things to consider are, do they have a coat check? Is there an on-site caterer? and or a bar? And lastly, and most importantly, what is their rain plan? Do you love their rain plan as much as their regular plan? This is something to take into consideration depending on where you live and what time of year you're choosing to get married. All right, a band or a DJ? If you're opting for a band on your wedding day, this is a bigger ticket item. This may be one of the first vendors that you lock in. Decide on how long you want them for the event. Is it for the whole night? If you want them just for the ceremony or the cocktail hour and the dinner, are they able to take 2 to 3 musicians from the full band to have them play the ceremony and the cocktail hour? If you want them just for the dance party, what will you be doing for the ceremony and the cocktail hour, or vice versa? Maybe you want live music for the ceremony or the cocktail hour and part of the dinner, and you want the DJ to take over for the dance party. Something to note is that there are companies out there that offer all of these different variations. There are entertainment companies that have a roster of different band styles within the company umbrella. There are also hybrid options, which means you can do a band DJ hybrid and even a DJ horns hybrid. A couple questions to ask when you're shopping around for bands are, do you have one set band that plays all together all the time? Or is this a collective where you won't interact with the assembled members prior to the day? If you go with a DJ, decide if you're gonna have them for the whole event as well, or just for the dance party. Having a DJ for the whole event will save you money. Adding live music or having a trio of some kind do the ceremony or cocktail hour will always cost a little more. Are you a couple who doesn't love when DJs make too many announcements? That's something to ask your DJ while you're investigating. Sometimes DJs provide lighting or a photo booth. Look into those add-ons if that's something that you're interested in. A question to always ask is if they provide their own equipment, including sound equipment and microphones. All right, let's dive into photography, videography, and florals. I'm categorizing these vendors together because I think it's really important that you admire their aesthetic as much as the person behind it. In making a decision with photography and videography, first and foremost, you need to love their work. And you need to love the story they tell through their photos and their films. Secondly, I always recommend getting on a video call or a phone call with the photographer and the videographer prior to booking, because as much as you need to vibe with their work, it's equally as important to connect with the person behind the lens. Your photographer and videographer are going to be capturing you getting ready. They're going to meet your close friends and your family. They're going to be documenting a core memory of your life together. Lastly, are they within your budget? If you love their work, love the kind of person they are, and they are within your budget you set aside, in my opinion, go for it. If you love their work, love who they are, but they are a little outside of your budget, go back to your budget doc and determine what you can adjust in order to work with them, if you can. Some things to consider when you're making your decision with your photographer and videographer. Does the photographer include an engagement shoot? Do both options offer a second shooter? What is the cost to add on a second shooter if it's not included? What is the hourly rate to add on time? Does the photographer have an option to add on film or an album? With florals, it's somewhat similar. You first and foremost need to love their style. You have to decide what feel or energy or vibe you want to bring into the venue. If you are unsure, maybe you find a florist whose style you love and have them help you figure out a vision based off of the venue and your guest count. One thing to keep in mind is that florals can get pricey. Buying wholesale flowers is out of the florist's control. Sometimes certain flowers are out of season, sometimes certain flowers are not local. You need to account for the design process florists put in, their labor pre-wedding in creating your structures and arrangements, the labor on the wedding day, and the team they need to pay to support them. You have to take into account the breakdown at the end of the night, and then the cleanup of the glasses or the vessels after the wedding is complete. Last but certainly not least, hair and makeup. When hiring a hair and makeup artist for your day, decide how many people are getting their hair and makeup done with you. Are you gifting this service to your friends and your family? Or are you giving them the option to use it and pay for it on their own? Are you looking to keep things natural? Are you looking for a glam look? Or are you looking for grooming services? Questions to ask your hair and makeup team are, do they offer trials before or after you book? How much is the trial? How much would it cost to keep artists on for touch-ups? If inclusivity is important to you, maybe you ask what their stance is on that. What type of products do they use? And will they travel if you need them to? Getting your hair and makeup done professionally may feel foreign to you and may feel very up close and personal. You're going to want to feel at ease and comfortable with your artist. This is a lot of information, I know. So please do not hesitate if you have any questions. Bye for now.